And I'm very proud on behalf of all the people with Parkinson's and their families who fought so hard for a cure, who fought so hard for answers and new drugs in the pipeline, and through our foundation have found a way to realize.
The history books say Marty McFly stopped time in 1985. But for Michael J. Fox, the real clock started ticking in a lonely hotel room 6 years later. At 64, the film star has finally broken his silence, addressing the dark shadows and whispers that have haunted his legacy. We've seen the movies, but behind those cameras and lights lies a shattering truth he's kept guarded until now. And finally, we're revealing the unfiltered reality of it all. On the morning of April 8, 2026, an unsettling silence covered the digital landscape. CNN, one of the world's most reputable news networks, had just released a somber, high-production video titled "Remembering the Life of Hollywood Legend Michael J. Fox." The obituary was a masterpiece of grief, a cinematic montage of a life lived in the fast lane, now supposedly ended. It felt official. The world began to weep, social media feeds turning into a digital wake as millions prepared to say a final, heartbreaking goodbye to the man who took us back to the future. But while the internet was busy writing eulogies and sharing clips of Back to the Future, in a quiet room in Los Angeles, the man in that obituary wasn't gone. Michael J. Fox was very much alive, and he was watching. The legend hadn't passed. He had simply outlived his own death announcement. It was an error by a newsroom that had pre-written the end of a story that wasn't over yet. Michael didn't react with anger or a cold legal statement. Instead, he resorted to humor. But as the laughter died down, a more serious question began to ignite. Why did they have that video ready? What did the insiders know that we didn't? Because while the death report was misinformed, the truth about his current condition is very, very real. To understand how he survived this viral hoax, we have to look at where he was just 24 hours before the world tried to bury him. On April 7th, the glamorous lights of Paley Fest LA illuminated a red carpet that has seen different industry titans, but all eyes were on one man. Michael J. Fox made a guest appearance for the season finale of the Apple TV Plus hit, Shrinking. But as the camera flashes went off, the world saw the unfiltered reality of a man who has spent 35 years in a silent fight with his own nervous system. The walk down that carpet took effort, every step a calculated victory over the tremors that have plagued him for decades. In Shrinking, Michael plays a character that mirrors his own health journey, a reminder that while his spirit remains unfazed, the effects of the disease were worse than ever before. Insiders noted that the atmosphere was electric, with a mix of reverence and concern. Michael wasn't just there to promote a show, he was there to overcome the dark shadow of his retirement. He had previously stepped away, claiming his memory and speech were deteriorating under the weight of the illness. Yet here he was, standing tall with a cast of legends. But amidst the professional triumph, one specific moment stole the breath of everyone in attendance. Michael J. Fox and Harrison Ford shared an embrace that almost broke the internet. Fans watching the footage on social media didn't just see two actors. They saw a bond forged in the fires of survival. For Michael, that hug was a moment of validation, and it was the emotional high point of a night meant to celebrate a career. But it felt more like a celebration of a soul that refused to be broken by its circumstances. But as beautiful as that embrace was, it served as a reminder of the hidden struggle that has defined Michael's life for over 3 decades. To understand the strength it took for him to stand on that stage, we have to travel back to a time before the world knew his secret. The pinky finger prediction. The year was 1991. Michael J. Fox was 30 years old, the unrivaled king of Hollywood, and currently on the set of Doc Hollywood in Florida. Life was all scripts and cameras. Until one morning, the universe sent a message through a single uncontrollable twitch in his left pinky finger. Michael initially laughed it off as overwork or too much caffeine, but the twitch didn't stop. When the doctors finally sat him down, the diagnosis was bad: young onset Parkinson's disease. In an industry that obsesses over youth and physical perfection, this was a death sentence for a career that had only just reached its peak. Michael was told he had, perhaps, 10 good years of work left, and for the next 7 years, Michael entered a clandestine chapter of his life. He became a master of calculated deception, using coffee cups, deep pockets, and constant movement to mask the tremors from his co-stars and the relentless paparazzi. But even as his body began to change, there was one piece of his identity that remained a total mystery to the fans who thought they knew him best. For decades, we've cheered for Michael J. Fox. But here is the truth: Michael J. Fox doesn't actually exist. In a movie-worthy twist, the actor was born Michael Andrew Fox. There is no J on his birth certificate, no J in his middle name. So, where did this iconic initial come from? Well, the Screen Actors Guild has a rule stating that you can't have a name that's already taken. When a young, ambitious Michael went to register, he found another Michael Fox already in the books. He didn't want to be Michael A. Fox. He thought it sounded too much like Michael, a Fox. So he chose the J as a tribute to character actor Michael J. Pollard. While the world fell in love with a persona built on a borrowed initial and a charming smile, the real Michael was beginning to grapple with an identity that was becoming increasingly affected by his secret diagnosis. As the tremors got worse, Michael realized that the facade of Hollywood couldn't stay up forever. The cover-up. For 7 long years, between 1991 and 1998, the world saw Michael J. Fox as the high-energy star of Spin City. But behind the scenes, he didn't just hide his tremors, he structured his entire life around them. He admitted to taking dopamine pills like candy, timed with surprising precision, so they would peak exactly when the director yelled, "Action!" If you watch those old episodes closely, you'll see the evidence. Michael always leaning against a desk, gripping a phone, or burying his left hand deep in a pocket to hide the shaking. But the darkest part of this silence wasn't just the physical toll, it was the isolation. Michael turned to alcohol to numb the dread of his prognosis, admitting he became a pro at escaping himself. He even kept his wife, Tracy, at a distance initially, terrified that the life they built would crumble if the truth came out. Tragedy finally struck midnight in 1998. The paparazzi were hounding him, sensing that something was wrong, and realizing he could no longer maintain the illusion, Michael decided to sit down for an interview with People magazine, finally uttering the words that would change the world of medicine forever. But as the world rushed to support him, Michael would drop another bomb that would redefine the word lucky. For years, Michael J. Fox has stood before sold-out crowds and looked into the cameras with a smile, calling his Parkinson's a gift, a statement that has inspired millions. But in 2026, the truth has become far more complex. In recent times, Michael finally admitted what many of us had long suspected. Behind the scenes, the toll has been intense. In just the last 2 years, Michael has suffered lots of injuries: a broken arm, a shattered shoulder, and even a broken cheekbone, all from simple falls. Michael confessed that the part he hates most isn't the tremors. It's the weight his illness places on his family. When Michael famously called Parkinson's a gift, he was looking at himself. But while he is the one with the tremors, his wife, Tracy Pollan, and their 4 children are the ones who have to navigate the emotional stress. For Tracy, the Hollywood romance has been marked by over 3 decades of caregiving, and it's emotionally taxing. Yet, Tracy remains by his side, refusing to let the disease steal their joy. But even as the disease progresses, Michael has turned his struggle into a movement, proving that while the gift takes, he is prepared to give back even more. And this led to the establishment of the Michael J. Fox Foundation. The $2 billion gamble. Since its launch, the Michael J. Fox Foundation has raised over $2 billion. And in some recent years, its annual funding has rivaled or even surpassed what the U.S. government spends on Parkinson's research in that same period. But the real value isn't just in the dollars, it's in the breakthroughs. Just months ago, his foundation funded a study that successfully identified a biomarker in spinal fluid that can detect Parkinson's before the first tremor even appears, a victory that could change the fate of millions, potentially stopping the disease in its tracks before it can affect another life. Yet, as he was busy saving the world, his own clock seemed to be winding down. The reality of his physical decline led him to a decision that broke the hearts of millions, a total withdrawal from the craft he loved. But as we've seen, the story of Michael J. Fox is never as simple as it seems. In 2020, Michael J. Fox dropped a bombshell in his memoir, No Time Like the Future. He announced his second retirement, but this time, it felt different. It wasn't just about the tremors. He admitted his short-term memory was failing, his speech was becoming affected by the disease, and he was losing his ability to perform. But then came the flip that no one saw coming. Michael didn't stay retired. By early 2026, he was back on set for Shrinking, delivering a multi-episode arc with the kind of brilliance that proved his cognitive resilience was far higher than even he had admitted. The man who said he couldn't memorize a line was now commanding the screen alongside Harrison Ford. Which begs the question, was his retirement a protective illusion? Or did he find a hidden reservoir of strength that defied even his own doctors? Michael J. Fox has spent decades as a living paradox. He calls himself a lucky man while enduring relentless physical trauma and outliving his own death reports. We want to hear from you. Michael J. Fox says he's lucky, but looking at the toll this journey has taken, what do you see? Is he a man truly blessed by perspective, or is he simply the toughest warrior Hollywood has ever produced? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, as we look at his comeback, we have to address the dark shadow that nearly ended it all before it began. The obituary. On the morning of April 8, 2026, CNN unleashed a high-definition obituary for a man who was at home having breakfast. The package was titled, Remembering the Life of Hollywood Legend Michael J. Fox. And for 3 agonizing hours, it was the only thing anyone could talk about. It was the day the world killed Marty McFly, and the grief was unyielding. This wasn't just a tweet or a whispered rumor. It was a fully edited, heart-wrenching retrospective of his battle with Parkinson's, framed in the past tense. Ironically, while fans were mourning the loss of their childhood hero, Michael was watching a preview of his own funeral. The confusion was massive. TMZ and E! News scrambled to verify the report, while Michael's own team was flooded with worried calls from frantic friends and family. CNN eventually pulled the video and issued an apology, calling it a package published in error. But the damage was done. The world had had a peek at the end, and now everyone was waiting to see how the ghost himself would respond. Michael didn't call his lawyers or issue a somber press release. Instead, he took to social media to deliver a masterclass in how to handle your own demise. On April 9th, while the internet was still reeling from CNN's blunder, Michael J. Fox logged onto Threads and, instead of just ignoring the rumors, He clapped back with the kind of sharp wit that made him a legend in the first place. He posted a 5-step guide on how to react when you see your own death reported on national television. His advice was simple. Option A, switch to MSNBC. Option B, pour scalding hot water on your lap, because if it hurts, you're definitely still here. The post ended with a line that was hilarious. I thought the world was ending, but apparently, it's just me and I'm okay. It was a display of the humor that has defined his 64 years. But beneath the unbothered jokes, there was a deeper message. In his response, Michael revealed a dark secret: that major news outlets mistakenly kill him off almost annually. He called it his annual reminder that he's still standing. It was a massive victory for his public image. But as the laughter subsided, fans began to look closer at the man behind the screen. While he was clapping back at the fake news, he was also breaking his silence on a reality that was far more daunting than a newsroom error. He admitted that while he's still here, things are getting harder. It was the unfiltered admission that led us to the truth we had all been quietly fearing. The laughter was a dazzling mask, but it couldn't hide the shattering reality of his daily battle. The laughter from Michael's social media clap back was a dazzling mask, but it couldn't hide the shattering reality of his daily battle. Because behind the dry wit and the defiant Threads posts lies a truth we've all quietly suspected while watching his recent interviews. It's not just the tremors anymore. The toll of Parkinson's has moved into a deeper, more terrifying territory: his cognitive abilities. In 2026, Michael has been forced to break his silence on the loss of the one thing that made him a superstar: his lightning-fast, unrivaled verbal dexterity. For decades, we knew him as the boyish wonder who could out-talk anyone in the room. But now, Michael admits that because of his failing short-term memory, the words he needs often remain hidden in a neurological fog, the ticking clock of the worsening disease slowly damaging the bridge between thought and speech. During the filming of Shrinking, insiders whispered about how much effort he required just to maintain a few minutes of dialogue. This is the reality of being Michael J. Fox at 64. It's a tough negotiation where he has to choose his words with the precision of a diamond cutter, knowing that every syllable is a victory over his brain. We suspected the struggle was getting harder, but hearing him admit it is a heartbreaking reminder of his mortality. Yet, in the midst of this cognitive war, Michael found strength in a man who knows a thing or two about surviving in a changing world. A friend indeed. In the cutthroat world of Hollywood, genuine friendships are rarer than a flawless script. But the bond between Michael J. Fox and Harrison Ford has become something truly astonishing. Dubbed the resilience bond by those on the set of Shrinking, their friendship isn't just two legends sharing a trailer. It's a support system between two men who have spent decades being the heroes, now facing the harsh reality of being human. Ford, known for his gruff exterior, reportedly became the one person who could crack Michael's moments of frustration with a single dry remark. The connection between them is one of mutual respect. Ford has watched Michael battle his own body with defiance, while Michael has found in Ford a sanctuary of normalcy. Insiders have shared anecdotes of Ford staying by Michael's side during memory lapses, not with pity, but with the steady presence of a fellow warrior. Two icons who refuse to let age or illness dim their sparks. But even with a titan like Harrison Ford in your corner, the battle doesn't end when the cameras stop rolling. Before he ever steps onto a red carpet, Michael has to go through a secret daily routine that would shatter a lesser spirit the second he opens his eyes. He lives his life in windows, brief, unpredictable chunks of time where his medication is at its peak. and his body is cooperative enough to move, speak, and smile properly. Then, there are the hours of specialized physical therapy, facial exercises to keep his expressions from freezing into a mask, and a large dose of dopamine replacement drugs. Every public appearance we see is calculated and timed with accuracy to ensure he doesn't off-phase in front of the cameras. He has admitted that he often pushes his body to a breaking point just to give the fans the Marty McFly energy they crave, knowing he will pay the price of exhaustion for days afterward. In his most recent 2026 sit-downs, Michael has moved beyond the optimism of his youth. He's finally being honest with us and no longer sugarcoating the physical toll. He's acknowledging the pain and then choosing to stand anyway. He is a man who has accepted the weight of his present and turned it into a beacon for the future. Whether he's laughing with Harrison Ford or racing toward a cure, Michael J. Fox remains one of the most truly astonishing survivors of our time. Is Michael the greatest warrior in Hollywood history? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And watch this next legend story right here.